I call this meeting of the Board of Adjustments together. We have some new members on the board, and so we welcome them. And I would ask the secretary to please read the roll call.
Mrs. Christy Thomas,
Present.
Mr. Sean Daly,
Here.
Mr. Michael Blash,
Here.
Mrs. Shauna Tranchand, Mr. Ron Glockner,
Here.
Mr. D'Artagnan Sanders. Mrs. Vice Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I would like to take that thing. Thank you. Please silence all of your electronic devices, to include phones and anything else you might have, or you're playing a game, turn it down. If you have any appeals to the decisions that this board makes, any aggrieved party may appeal the decision of the Board of Adjustments to the district court. There are speaker cards that are over here that you may fill out if you wish to speak regarding a case. The public part of this is that you have 10 minutes each side and 5 minutes for rebuttal. Once you have finished your case, we would ask that you exit the building. And the reason for that is because for some reason, people that are talking out in the outside, we can still hear what you're saying. And, we don't want to bribe you or anything for what you've said. No, I'm teasing. So, with that being said, we are going to get the meeting started. And so we will, first of all, need to approve the minutes from the April 2nd, 2024 meeting.
Madam Chairman, I'm also move that they be approved as submitted.
Okay. It has been moved that we approve the minutes from April 2nd, 2024. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay. Mr. Blosh.
Do we need to make a statement with regards to not having a full seated board here today in terms of we might want to table?
Yeah, so maybe we can vote on the minutes, and
Oh,
then
I'm sorry.
we'll do the
Oh, I
election.
apologize.
That's okay.
We'll do the election of officers,
Yeah.
and then after that, we can mention that.
Okay.
Sorry.
All righty.
If y'all want to vote on the minutes, moved by Mr. Blosh and seconded by Mr. Daly for the approval of the April 2nd, 2024 minutes
Please vote with your screens
on the right-hand side.
on the right-hand side.
All in favor, motion carries.
All righty, thank you. Our first business that we will have is the election of officers. This was postponed from last month because the Parish Council was going to vote on the Board of Adjustments, and we decided to wait until the new board was announced before we selected any of the officers.
Mrs. Vice Chairman, I just have to confirm that we're actually recording.
Okay, if you'll excuse us, we would just have to make sure we're recording. So we vote for chair, vice chair, and your secretary. That's it.
Yes. We're on, we got it.
You got it.
We're good.
All right, so our first act of business for today is the election of officers. I will open with the nomination for the chair.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to nominate you, Ms. Thomas, for the chair position.
Thank you, Mr. Blosh. Any other nominations?
I'll just say it.
Why, thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
Motion by Mr. Blosh,
Second by
seconded
Mr. Daly.
by Mr. Daly. Okay.
And then, no.
Please vote.
If you would vote with your screens to the right.
All in favor, motion carries. Mrs. Christy Thomas is our new chairwoman.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will do my best. We now would open the floor to nomination for vice chair.
I move to nominate Mr. Blanche right here.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll second that.
I was gonna nominate you.
All right. Are there any, I know, are there any other nominations for vice chair? If none, would you please vote with your mic?
All in favor, motion carries. Mrs. Chairman or Chairwoman, we have a new Vice Chairman, Mr. Blosh.
All right, thank you. Also, the secretary for the board is Ms. Lambert. So our officers are complete, yes. All right, moving on, we are going to start with BOA case number 2024-3734, which was postponed from last time. Is the Ms. Crawford, I believe, Linnell Crawford here?
She said she was going to be present, but
She didn't do it, she didn't come last time either.
maybe we can do this.
Mr. Blanche?
I'd ask we just defer that to the end of the meeting, in fairness, in case she has some problems getting here.
I agree. So we are going to put that case to the end of the meeting in case she's having trouble getting here, car trouble, whatever. All right? So the second case that we will hear today is 2024-3767. Is Roshan Taylor here? Yes, sir. Would you please come forward or before he comes? Okay. Okay. We are going to go ahead and read the case, and then we'll ask you to state your name and your address. Okay? Request by applicant in an A2 suburban district for an after-the-fact variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 23.5 feet, and the required side yard setback from 10 feet to 6 feet. The property is located at 269 Magnolia Street, Mandeville, Louisiana. And Mr. Roshan, would you please state your name and your address?
Roshan Taylor,
Let's read this
269 Magnolia Street, Mandeville, Louisiana, 70448.
Okay, the findings? Or what? All right, thank you. And we will now have the findings by the Board of Adjustments. Staff.
The subject property is developed with an existing 1,000 square foot single-family residence and an existing shed in the rear of the property. Both structures were constructed prior to the establishment of the UDC and any regulating setbacks for residential construction. As your narrative explains, there is an existing 1,000 square foot home on the property and a shed which currently houses a washer and dryer. The applicant applied for a building permit to remodel the shed. It's currently located 23.5 feet from the rear property line and 6 feet from the corner side lot line. The UDC requires 25 feet or 20% of the depth of the lot for the rear yard setback and a 10-foot side yard setback. So the objective of the request is to allow the original remodel application to add a 13-foot by 28-foot covered breezeway to connect the two structures at the roof line. So you're essentially connecting the stick-built home and the shed with a breezeway, and because you're doing that, the shed needs to come into compliance with the IRC basically and meet residential building code. So those setbacks that were once applicable for an accessory structure, you now refer to the primary structure setback. So we're calling it an after-the-fact variance request, but really it's for a shed to meet the IRC.
All right. Now, we're going to let you state your name and your address, sir, and what you would like to say further about this.
All right, my name's Roshan Taylor. It's 269 Magnolia Street, Mandeville, Louisiana, 70448. I don't know what to say. The reason I want to build the breezeway, basically the home's only 1,000 square feet, With that being said, the washer and dryer is housed in the shed area, in which I was granted the permission to do some maintenance to the shed. It was definitely a safety hazard. That also being said, if I've got 2 kids and one on the way, if my wife's ever at home, I'm at work, she's got to take the kids out to the laundry. Spring, summer, everyone knows it's going to be torrential downpour. This will allow her to be able to maneuver and do the things that she has to do without being soaking wet. Unfortunately, the home in the shed was built in 1929 before a lot of the setbacks were created, so there's nothing I can really do about that.
All right. All right, I have a couple of notes here. I have a couple that says that there is no, they have no objection to this, and another one who says they won't, and it should be in your packet. I now have a request for speaker. Yes, ma'am. Would you please come forward, state your name and address?
Hi, my name is Tracy Elsenson, 1379 Valmont Street, Mandeville, Louisiana, 70448. I'd like to start by saying Mr. Taylor does not live at 269 Elm Street. He lives next door to it, and him and his family does not live in this home. He rents it out. And this shed was never a residence. It was never a carport. It was a crab shedding shed from 1929 until current. And you should have pictures of the shed. There is no breezeway there. Mr. Taylor has installed his own sewer and water to the shed. No permits have been given, and code enforcement has not been out to double check any of this. I have notes from November 1st to current where myself has contacted the parish. We've spoken to Miss Helen Lambert about this case, and he is using this new addition which had dirt floors, and he put concrete. He has built onto it. He's added it up. It's not 6 feet from the fence. It's closer than that, and he's going to use this for a rental property, and he actually lives next door to this property, not on this property. And if you need pictures that you haven't got, I do have them on my phone, and we'll be glad to show you. I have been in Lewisburg, my family, since the 1830s, before it was named Lewisburg. I know the original owners of this property, and I strongly object to what he's doing to this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Taylor, do you have anything else you would like to say?
Absolutely. All right, so she is correct. The home next door belongs to my wife, in which we are moving into 269 Magnolia Street. That is my address. We are actually selling 265 Magnolia Street to move into 269 Magnolia to downsize because of the price of insurance. A lot of things are just a little bit too expensive for us to stay in 265. Now, as far as the breezeway structure, no, she's correct. There is not one. That's why I'm applying to build one for that reason. Now, where she's getting the rest of her information from, I have no idea. That's her assumptions. Everyone's entitled to whatever assumption they want, but in this case, what I'm doing, all I've done actually was what's been approved already. The plumbing and the sewage, you can see in any of the remodeled notes were approved. And that was it. There was already a washer dryer present because there is no room for a washer and dryer in the house, so it's always been present. There's always been plumbing and sewage in there for the mere fact that that's where the water drains from the washer.
All right, sir. Anything else to add? Or is there anyone else that would like to talk for or against this? Yes, please come forward.
I would like to add that he does rent this property currently, and to my knowledge, he is not expecting to move into it. He's building a 2-story pool house in his current house, and they're adjoining properties, and he tore the fence down, and he got permit to build a pool house in that property where he lives. And if he's got 2 kids and expecting another one, his family's not going to fit in this very small house that's already there. He's building this shed with like 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a bathroom. And I have pictures. So I don't know why he's saying I don't know what I'm talking about, but he is not living in this property and he is not moving into this property.
Thank you. Okay, I will open the floor for discussion and questions from the board. Mr. Balash?
Okay, yeah, from the applicant, sir, if you wouldn't mind, I have a question for you. Is it correct that there have been no building permits that you applied for this project?
That is incorrect. If you look them up, there are building permits for that, for the shed. Everyone's already been out. And second, I don't know how she's actually got into my house or my property and decided to take a picture.
Oh, excuse me, ma'am.
But everything is done. Matter of fact, I received a phone call stating, or the inspector asking if I had a permit, in which I said I did, and then he researched it and says, "Oh, we found it. I do apologize. Whoever called in on you clearly is ill-informed that you actually have this." So,
Okay, can you tell me about the improvements to the structure so far?
absolutely. So the original structure was a shed with, I want to say, 12 feet covering on each side. It was concrete in the inside, gravel on the outside. All I did was patch the concrete to the sides and we enclosed it. We raised the roof. The roof was through water damage from improper gutters. The roof was old tin and it actually sagged. It was about maybe 5 feet. We raised that to the area of 6 feet and then going in 8 feet and then at the top of 15 foot at the peak, in which that was all into the permit that I applied for with the plans drawn by contractor.
Okay, and can you tell me about the permit, what it was for specifically?
That's exactly what it was
Okay,
for.
so it was for allowance of sewerage,
Yep,
as well as electrical, all the sorts of things that you would expect
Yes.
from an.
yep.
Okay. My other question is directed towards staff. I'd like to ask, is this within the buildable area at present?
All right.
It is not?
It was constructed outside of the required setbacks,
So the buildable area, it is outside the buildable area.
but
at
it
this
was
point.
constructed prior to the enactment of the UDC,
I see.
so
Prior to.
prior to.
Okay, I
And I
understand.
just want to make mention, the case number, there's a sentence in the staff report. It says the applicant applied for a building permit to remodel the shed, which has been issued. The scope of work was to place a roof on the structure, add a washer and dryer, new walls, concrete, electrical, and piping.
Okay, okay.
All right.
I do want to add, I do understand there are a lot of people in the neighborhood were a bit uneasy and unhappy because the structure was there prior to me moving in the area. It was there 1929 is when it was built. And unfortunately, like I said, it was an unsafe area. I mean, the house was an eyesore and abandoned for 6 years until I got the home, and then I actually put some money into the home. That being said, between termites, a sagging roof of a metal roof that was rusted, it just was not safe, period. It had to be redone.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Daly?
Okay, it's a different system now. The updated shed, is that in the same footprint as the
Yes.
previous shed?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that was a little unclear. Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm sorry, ma'am, the time is up. No more comments from there. Yes,
I'd like to ask a gentleman a question.
you may.
Sir, is the remodel of the shed complete?
The remodel of the shed is almost complete. We were going to put the exterior, we had the shed wrap, and we had the windows in, and that's when I was going to, okay, let's put the breezeway, and I was like, wait, let me stop and check the code, make sure that I can actually do this. And which that's when I read and found out, oh wait, I gotta go and apply to do this. So when I went in to apply to do it, they said, okay, you gotta apply for a variance because of where it's located.
And the new request for your new permit for the breezeway, will that be connecting that breezeway to your residence and to the remodeled building?
Yes, it's from one to the other because the like I said, the laundry is in the back, so it's connecting from the rear door of the home, which is about northeast, 13 feet east, and maybe about 20 to the door of the shed area is about 27 feet, I believe, is what it is. And so it's basically just a breezeway to be able to walk through and walk in.
Gotcha. My next question is to planning. If the request was submitted not to connect this breezeway to the shed and to the home, in other words, it would not be attached, it would be just separated, would that be feasible and fall within compliance?
It would be considered an accessory structure at that point. It's the fact that he's attaching it by breezeway that it needs to meet the residential building code. It becomes one structure at that point.
Correct.
And that's kind of my question about that, because if it does become one structure, and I understand what you were saying about being non-conforming at this point in time,
Right.
because it was constructed before the UDC, but the point I'm trying to make is at that point, you can add a kitchen and other facets that you would not be allowed to put in a accessory building. Is that correct?
Understandable. May I ask, okay, so
Okay.
let's just say the front of the shed was 4 feet smaller and a half a foot on another one. Wouldn't that be able, couldn't I do the same thing?
That's what I'm asking about, the buildable area from
Yeah.
Ms. Lambert, if you can ask about that, or if you can answer that possibly. There apparently is some question as to whether or not it's 6 feet from the property line or if it's closer. I don't know. I don't see a survey. I see a
I don't
sketch
either.
basically, but.
It's measured at 6 foot from the fence.
Okay.
It's supposed to be 10 feet, but it was built
Okay.
before. All I did was basically put a new face on it. I could easily say, okay, yeah, I'll spend an extra 10 grand and move it back, cut the front of it off and build it back that way, and which therefore I would just apply for an extension to the home, which I guess would be fine.
'Cause-
But I'm just adding a breezeway.
Yeah.
Mr. Taylor, could you work with planning, and could planning also work with you to make this breezeway not attached? That way you would fall into compliance with the ordinances that we have
Really,
in
if you think about it.
effect?
I mean, we spoke about it. It's just the biggest issue, because matter of fact, we tried saying if it was within 10 feet, you can connect it and it wouldn't be considered an addition. It'd just still be considered an accessory. But the mere fact of I need the 14, 15 feet and then also connect, I mean, it really defeats the purpose. If, like I said, if it's pouring down raining and you walk out of the door, you're soaking wet. If she's got my kids, I'm at work, she's soaking wet. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to help her at this point. So all I'm trying to do is honestly just alleviate the frustration from my fiance. That's it.
So trying doing that would be create more of a safety hazard, and you're trying to eliminate the safety hazard now by creating the
Pretty much.
breezeway.
And that's it.
Thank you. You have stated that. And so, are there any other questions from the board members? All right. All right. Do I hear a motion?
Try to frame this motion, if that's okay, in our discussion too.
Yeah.
Because it's really, the position of the shed is the issue and why it's here. You're right, if it was in a slightly different configuration, it wouldn't come before the board. And so this improvement necessitates coming here. Broadly speaking, our purview actually has to do with the setbacks. It really has nothing to do with the shed itself.
Right.
So that's, it's a pretty limited purview. So what we would be varying from is the position of the shed on the property rather than in the physical structure or even actually the fact of the breezeway. So, given that it's an existing structure and that it's got a building permit, I don't have very strong feelings that the breezeway would affect, it doesn't affect the setback issue.
All right.
So, for that reason, I guess I'll make a motion to approve the variances.
So it has been moved to approve this variance. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Blosh has seconded.
Always in the affirmative, but
If that was a really well done motion, by the way, that was tough to verbalize.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
If you would please vote.
Well, can we have a
Yes.
discussion too, because it was, I
One
still-
more thing.
Yeah, my only hang-up about this is that, are we allowing for basically just the continuation of the house? You know, granted, you could put 2 inches between it, and then, you know, technically it is not connected to the house, but you still have an accessory building. When you get down to it legally, I mean, I'm assuming there's no hole that can be plugged for that. In other words, if he wanted to do that, he could do that, and we wouldn't really even be here talking about this, as I understand it. I mean, what are your intentions to use the property? Or is someone going to be living at some point in time? Are you going to be adding a kitchen? These are the
Sir, I
questions.
do not plan on adding anything else into the house. I mean, if you actually look at the shed, okay, so the house right next door is basically, it's like a pool house. And our house on 269, if you walked in, you would say 100% like this is a shed.
Right.
Matter of fact, I still tried to preserve a lot of what was already there that wasn't so termite ridden because historic purposes, the wood that they use is totally different. If you walked in, you would look in and say, this is a shed. Like there's no way to make it anything else. The ground's not even, it's a shed. All I'm doing, if you look, the best part of this is the actual laundry room where you would go in to do laundry with, and there's all of the housing for the water pump and everything else in that entire area. Even if you wanted to try to rent it out, or as she thinks, as whatever she wants to think that it is, it wouldn't be something that someone's like, oh, you know, this is a really comfortable place to live. Yeah, in my shed, it's all of the storage for basically both houses in there. That's all it is. And making things easy. If you were to come and you were to walk from the house into the shed, knowing for one, you can't add any fill to the land. You walk on that grass, you're going to sink about 3 or 4 inches. You want a breezeway in that area just to make it there.
Okay. Did that answer your question, Mr. Blanche?
Yep.
All right.
And Mr. Blush, I was just going to point out too, you all have the authority to stipulate or make stipulations or restrictions on the variance you grant. So you can restrict this variance to just the construction of a breezeway.
Okay. And not allow for any sort of kitchen or anything like that in the future?
Right, he would have to come back and would seek a second
Okay.
variance in the future.
Then I would like to maybe offer a friendly amendment to that, having known.
There you go.
Yeah, so the amendment would be to, is it the limit of use of the?
Right, to restrict the variance to the breezeway as applied for.
There you go.
I think that's,
Did you get that?
and thank you for that. Thank you.
All right. So it has been moved and seconded with an amendment to accept this variance with the amended caveat.
So basically, it would be no improvements to the shed.
Right, just approval of the breezeway.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you clear on that, sir?
Thank you.
All right. Well, we have to vote first.
Oh, sorry.
Will everybody please vote?
Okay. All right.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, our third case today is BOA case 2024-3781. And the request by the applicant in an A4 single-family residential district for a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 25 feet to 10 feet to allow for an addition to a single-family residence. The property is located at 126 East Ruelle, Mandeville. Applicant and Representative Davis and Suzanne Brister. Will the staff please read their findings?
The subject property is developed with an existing single-family residence located within Beauchene subdivision and abutting the golf course. The request is for a 15-foot rear yard setback reduction, which will allow the applicant to reconstruct an outdoor patio 10 feet from the rear property line. Note that the request has been approved by the Beauchene HOA, and the applicant stated that they received verbal support from the neighbors to the south.
All right. will you please step forward and state your name and your address, please, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Davis Brister, 126 East Truell Drive in Mandeville, 70471.
All right, sir. Is there anything you'd like to tell us about this?
Not much. I'll probably start rambling. It's a simple.
You have 10 minutes.
Oh, well, you don't want me to go that long. We had an old wooden deck. It was in pretty big need of repair. We want to re-landscape our backyard, but the idea was to tear the original deck. I think was built in the 80s. Tear that down. The overhang on the original deck was pretty low. I'd say 7 or 8 feet. So the idea is to, in as short as I can say it, is to modernize the back. The house itself was built kind of back on the property, which is what puts us close to the golf course. As what you just read stated, the course itself, there's quite a bit of space. I guess I would call it a green space, but it's more of a brown space. There's 10 to 12 pine trees in between the fairway on the Magnolia course and where the property line is. The cart path, which is something we had to talk to the neighborhood about, is at least 100 yards, if not 200 or 250 yards away from where this expansion would be, which is something that they wanted to know. I don't have anything else really to add on it. I don't think, unless there's specific questions.
All right, sir. Is there anyone here who would like to object to this or is against this proposal? If not, I'll open it to the board for questions. Mr. Blosh. Sorry about that. This is a new technical thing that we're trying to get used to.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, I, in my own opinion of this, I don't see where this presents any problem for anyone, especially with the blessing of Bo Shin Homeowners Association. This seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, particularly with them because they're very strict with
Yes.
their code, so I understand. And Mr. Daly.
Yeah, I have a question. So you got the 10-foot variance. You got a previous 4-foot variance.
That would have been the prior homeowner for the deck. This was
Okay. Oh, I see.
These
It's
are
in
90s.
existence.
It was a
Yeah,
long
okay.
time ago. I was in
Gotcha.
college.
Okay, and that's 14 feet, and the request is for 15 feet. And I don't think I care either way, but I just want to make sure that it's okay with Bo Shen that we're
Yeah.
slipping
No,
the
the
foot
letter's
in.
here, yeah.
Okay.
All
Sounds good. And I'll just add too, it's subjectively far from the course, depending on how good you are in golf. Like I may end up in those trees, so I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's probably
that's
good you're putting a
point.
roof in. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? All right, do I hear a motion?
Madam Chairman, I move that BOA case 3781 be accepted as presented.
It's been moved by Mr. Blosh and seconded by Mr. Ron, what, your last name, I'm sorry? Glotner, Mr. Glotner. He's new, that's why I didn't know his name. All righty. It's been moved and seconded. Will the board please vote?
Motion carries. All in favor?
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The next case is BOA case 2024-3782. Request by applicant in HC Highway Commercial District for a variance to remove 3 existing trees located within the west side planting buffer. The property is located north side of LA Highway 1085, west of LA Highway 1077, Covington, Louisiana. Will the staff please read their findings?
The subject property is part of an undeveloped tract within North Point Business Park, which is proposed to be developed with a restaurant. The applicant is seeking a variance to remove 3 trees within the western side yard buffer, which consists of an 18-inch pine tree, 15-inch pine tree, and 8-inch maple. The request is due to the extension of underground gas and electrical lines to connect to the cooking equipment which proposed to be located along the back wall of the building. The existing trees proposed to remain within the western side buffer provides 10 credits. The applicant is proposing to plant 12 new trees, therefore exceeding the planting requirement
There you go.
for the side yard buffer.
All right. What's his name? Will the defendant come forward? Raise your right hand. I solemnly swear.
Thank you.
The applicant, I'm sorry, sir, if you will. I watch way too
It's
many
okay.
of those
I've been
movies.
called worse.
If you will please state your name and your address.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Butch Bauer. I'm with Waffle House out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is in the North Point Business Park, and when I came to look at this site, it's a lot of woods. Can't really figure out where my property lines are going to be, so it's kind of, it's undeveloped property, so it's kind of hard to plan around things like this. And so it came as a surprise to us during a pre-submittal meeting that we would need to get a variance to remove those trees, because that's our utilities come in from the back side of the building. If you've ever been in a Waffle House, the cook's right in front of you, and you're sitting on the high counters, and the natural gas line, the underground electric comes in from the back of the building and out. Gave everybody a schematic so you can kind of see that. So it's a very typical building, same design since 1955. There's no other way to run those two lines. So we're willing to plant more trees or do whatever else we need to do.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that is opposed to this that would like to say something? All right, I will open it to questions from the board. Mr. Balash?
I'll just say we do love our trees here, and we value them. And so I think that would have been, the 10 solution would have been perfect, but 12 is even better for us. So I'm in favor of this.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, and I
Sherman.
just want to
Bailey?
speak to the utility corridor. Does that have any other issues in terms of distance, or is that the utility corridor out back?
As far as separation?
Yeah, the separation
Yeah,
issues.
good question. We've coordinated with utility companies involved. They have no problems with this. They've seen our plans, and they have no objections to those locations, which is pretty typical.
Okay.
3-4 feet separation. And they come in at different depths too.
Mm-hmm. And that's, you can't build on top of that, right? So it's
Yeah.
just,
On top
it's
of
you
line.
cannot build on top of that utility corridor. It just sort of goes,
Yeah.
your parking lot kind of goes close to it, and then it,
Yeah,
It
no,
is,
the
yeah.
water and sewer line come out on the parking lot side of the building,
Yeah,
and you don't want to
stand
run the
in
natural
cover,
gas
it's not-
underneath the
right,
building.
it's not going to go under. Okay, yeah. Good, all right.
Yeah.
So-
All right. Is there any more discussion among the board? Is it inappropriate to ask for free waffles? Uh-oh.
It's being recorded?
I was merely
I
kidding.
know. We're good ambassadors. We're happy to take care of you.
Oh, no. All right, with that being said, I would like to ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance as requested by the applicant.
It's been moved. Now do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this case with Waffle Inn Incorporated. Please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
And thank you for going over, because
Oh, sure.
12 is a good number for us.
We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Okay. now we're on. All right, the next case will be BOA case 3783, request by applicant in the HC2 Highway Commercial District for a waiver of the required 10-foot side buffers and required number of Class A and Class B trees. The property is located at 1701 and 1705 Louisiana Highway 59, Mandeville. Will the staff please read their findings?
The subject property is developed with a gas station and retail shopping center. While two distinct developments, these structures are located on a single parcel being 2.83 acre. The owners of the properties have submitted a concurrent minor subdivision application to subdivide the property and create 2 lots of records for each respective development. As it can be seen in the minor subdivision survey attached, the proposed property line, which separate parcel A and parcel B, has generated the requirement for a 10-foot side yard buffer area on each parcel and a required number of Class A and Class B trees. While parcel B is providing a roughly 14-foot side yard buffer along with the common property line, parcel A is not providing any buffer due to the location of the existing drive aisle on a retail shopping center site. As such, the applicant is seeking a waiver of the required 10-foot side yard setback and the required Class A and Class B trees. Should the board be in favor of the variance, it should be subject to replacing the existing shrub located within the parking islands at the end of each parking row with 1 Class A tree in each island for a total of 7 Class A trees.
All right. Would you please come forward and state your name?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner or the applicant this afternoon, CSP-NE Real Estates LLC. A little background on the property. Those of you who are aware of the site, which is just to the south of here on Highway 59, the site has been developed probably for about 20 years in its current configuration. The same family has owned the property until recently for probably about 50 years. The 2 buildings that are there, the strip center and then the C-store and the gas station, are separately owned, separately operated by different individuals who have been occupying and owning those improvements since they were built. And they did that kind of under a ground lease with the owner, the family that had it all those years. Fast forward now, the generation that owned it for 50 years now wants to sell it. He and his descendants came to the occupants and asked if they would be interested in buying it and making it owner-occupied property, which they have done. They have bought the property, and it was their intent and desire to buy it from the family and then re-subdivide it so the owner of the strip center would be the owner of the land where it is located, the owner of the C-store and gas station would be the owner of those improvements and the ground on which it is located. As part of that process, we have filed for the minor subdivision request, which Ms. Lambert has noted, and I believe you have a copy in your file. It is that new proposed property line down the middle that is triggering the required green belt on each side. Since the sites are developed, have been developed for all these years, we simply can't comply with that on the north side. Obviously, both owners are in agreement. The owner on the south side parcel has no objection to this and is part of the application today. We're not bringing anything new to the area. There's no new building we're going to build. We're not further encroaching. We're simply asking to allow the status quo to continue, but to allow us to have both parcels owner-occupied going forward. The staff, Ms. Lambert, has suggested that the north parcel replace some of the plantings or shrubs in the islands with 7 Class A trees. We have absolutely no objection to that and are happy to comply with that request. As stated, I would just, if we get to that point, I'd like to know exactly where she's looking to have those placed. But I've talked to my client. We're prepared to do it in a very quick fashion, but just would want to make sure we do it correctly. So for some details there. So again, not bringing anything new to the area other than a property line where it didn't exist before. It'll give us the opportunity to have 2 owner-occupied facilities on this property, which I think will benefit everybody in the long run. I know at least for the C-store property, that owner has a major refurbishment that he would like to do once we can kind of get through this process, and he knows he owns the dirt and owns the buildings and improvements and so forth. So I think that'll be a net gain for the area. Be happy to answer any questions that any of the board members may have, and we appreciate your consideration this afternoon.
Thank you. Is there anyone who is opposed to this particular variance request? If not, I'll open it to the board for questions. Sir, if you would remain. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I have a question for staff with regards to the plantings of the trees myself, because I'm a little bit confused as to
I am too.
the positions you were talking about.
It's within,
It's,
it would be within the parking islands. If you look at, the aerial, at the time this, the shopping center was constructed, one Class B tree was required in each island. For some reason, maybe they died and they replaced them with the shrubs. So we're just asking that, the shrubs be replaced with Class A trees as required by the ordinance. So I counted maybe a total of 7 islands within the parking lot. So they would replace or place some Class A trees in those islands. If you want to increase or reduce the numbers, it's up for discussion.
okay, let's see.
I can't count 7,
4,
but
5,
I may
6.
not.
Is that what I'm counting right
Is
here?
that counting?
Just count around the corners?
So if you have the one that is on the corner of the building on the south side,
Right.
then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I think you have a 7th one that is on in that other corner of the building, or another 7th one, I'm sorry, on the northern part of the building.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I see now.
What about,
Okay, so, okay, I see where you're talking about now.
But if you want to reduce it to the 6 islands that are shown on the drawing, it's no objection to that.
Okay.
I have a question for the staff. What would contemplate a Class A tree?
It could be a maple, an oak,
Something that would be tall?
We've got a little book that we can get for you so that
Okay.
you'll understand, look at it.
Okay.
and-
I'm
and
very familiar
determine.
with this area and this property.
Yes.
My wife goes to that gym a lot, and sometimes I have to pick her up. And those drives are tight as they are. And for safety concerns, with any kind of shrubs that would be visible obstruction for people coming around those curves and parking, that's why I was asking that question. And I'm glad that they're willing to plant whatever Class A trees that are required, but I don't see anything other than this being just a subdivide and then it falling into a different class. So I'm not going to have any objections to this.
All right, is there any further discussion? Yes. Discuss away, Mr. Daly.
I don't really have any question, I'll just discuss, but, we've had both where we've had sites merged, I'm not using the right terminology, and subdivided, where we've run into this and we've granted those variances in the past. And so I think, a concern when you subdivide is that they're two functional sites, and clearly they are because they've been operating as such for so long. So I don't
Yeah.
think that's a big deal. I guess I do have questions about the requirements of the trees on this. I don't, because on mine, and the legend says those are lights in the parking lot, and I just didn't want to have too much interference with the lighting versus the trees.
There are
So-
some lights, however, and that's the reason why I'm not asking for too many trees. but
Okay.
Not one in each island, but like you have double islands, so maybe one in
Put 'em
each
there.
double island that are there, so.
Okay.
And maybe reducing it to 6 or 4 if the board would rather go to 4. It's just to improve provide some shade in the parking lot.
Okay.
All right.
One more question for
One-
staff.
yes, Mr.
Parcel
Partner.
A, if we pass this, will they fall into any kind of other variance requests in the future for maybe, say, parking for the little sub-small?
Question.
No, I'm not expecting that there's any request for reduction of parking spaces. It meets the requirements as of right now, if I'm not mistaken. That's how it was calculated originally.
And that's that's a drive aisle, right? It's not parking. That's in that, what we would be talking about, this setback if it was subdivided. So
That's
it's not
correct.
even a
If
parking.
you're looking between the
Yeah.
property line and the building itself,
Mm-hmm.
in the rear, you have the dumpster that is located there. So we want to
I
make
see
sure to
that.
keep
Access,
sufficient space
yeah.
for the truck to
For
be
the
able
truck
to
to get
back
that.
up.
Okay, this is where I have a question with regards to, I understand where you're coming from with the islands, but they are presenting some problem. What about the other green space that exists within that, along the highway right there?
Oh, they're very well landscaped. The
Okay.
front.
No, no, but I'm saying is, could we not, put the trees in there if we're forcing it into the islands where it's not gonna be healthy for the tree or to present problems? Could that be an alternative planning,
Actually,
location or no?
if you do a street view, it's heavily wooded in the front. They've maintained their
Well-
landscaping very well along the front. Like from an aerial view, you don't really see, but if you go on Google Earth and you do a
Not
street
familiar with the
view,
property as well.
oh yeah.
So,
But you have space to provide maybe like a tree on each double island, and as well as at the end of each the two other rows. It should be possible to do that. Now, if you want to move to a Class B tree to have a smaller tree, I have no objection either. I'm just trying to provide a little bit of shade as it was originally approved, when the shopping
Right.
center was constructed.
okay.
Okay. All right, is there any further discussion? If not, do I hear a motion?
I'll motion to accept as requested.
With the 7 trees?
With the 7 trees? All right. It has been moved by Mr. Glockner to approve the variance with 7 trees. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Blosh has seconded. Will you please vote with your voter thinger?
Motion carries. All in favor?
Thank you. Now this one. Okay, so case number 3784, and let me break with protocol a little bit. Are you here from last month when we postponed? Okay, we put your case back to the end so that in case you had trouble getting here. So we will hear your case next, okay? Thank you. All right, with that being said, the next case is 2024-3784, request by applicant in a 1-2 industrial district for a variance to move the required street buffer on the north side of the proposed access road. The property is located on the north side of South Crentell Road, Lacombe, Louisiana. All righty, and who is going to come forward to represent Mr. Magron? We would need to have staff findings first.
The requested variance is to allow for the placement of the required 30-foot street planting buffer along the north of the access road rather than along the property line where it is currently required. As shown on the attached aerial, there's a portion of an existing dirt road which provides access to the existing cell tower site and the subject property from South Crentell Road. The existing road runs along the interstate where this street buffer is required to be. The variance to provide the street buffer to the north of the access road will allow the applicant to improve the existing dirt road to the required standards and extend the road to access the western portion of the subject property.
All right, thank you. All right, would you please introduce yourself, state your name and your address, please?
Yes, thank you again. Paul Marone on behalf of I-12 Holdings LLC, P.O. Box 1810, Covington, Louisiana 70434. So the request this evening, or this afternoon, is not to eliminate or reduce the planting area, but really to relocate that planting area. We have no objection or problem with the required 30-foot street planting area, but for the reasons I'll talk about in a little bit more detail, we would like to relocate that. The first reason that gives rise to the request is that if you're familiar with the property, and most everybody is if you've driven I-12 because you see it over there, the property's been cleared for some time, and there is an old road bed that actually runs along the property line as it comes south and turns and along the interstate right-of-way and goes to the western part of the property. If you look at certain old maps, you actually see that road is identified. So if we were to strictly comply with the ordinance as to where our 30-foot buffer needed to be, or planting area, it would be right in that road bed. So we're asking to shift it to the north so that the road bed can remain. It can be the access road to the western part of the property, and it would act as a true service road along that property line. A couple of points for consideration. One, there is existing treed buffer along and within the I-12 right-of-way. So that's a benefit. That will obviously remain. So if we were to be given the approval that we're asking for, what you would have then is the I-12 buffer, our little service road, and then another buffer, which to me seems to be good aesthetically from both sides, from the interior of the property and those tenants that might be there, as well as from I-12. The other point that that we would make is that with the buffer, with the roadway being preserved along the property line and the buffer on the north side or interior to that roadway, it will help us control the drainage on the property, better collect the water, better deliver it to our retention, and so forth. So that would seem to be a benefit as well. As far as the negative effect, yes, you will have a roadway that is along that property line, but we're still going to have good buffer there, both on the north and the south, and we won't need to be planting that buffer inside of a roadbed that's been there for 20 years or so. So again, we're not asking for relief from creating the buffer. We understand the need for it and will comply with that. We would simply ask that we be given the opportunity to relocate the 30-foot buffer to the north side of our entrance road. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have. Mr. Sieverding, the property owner, is here as well, if there should be additional questions.
Since there's no one else in the room, I doubt there's anybody here that's opposed to this. Would you like to say anything else, Mr. Zimmer?
Pretty much summed it up. You know, it makes a lot of sense to us from a development standpoint, the access to buildings and so forth. So it just makes a lot of sense to us. We have no objection to the landscape requirements and meeting set requirements. Just from a flow standpoint, obviously we have a roadbed that's existing already.
I'm sorry. Would you please come to the podium and state your name, although we could hear you?
Mark Sieverding,
And your
235
address.
Lotus Drive South,
Thank you.
Mandeville, Louisiana. Essentially, I'll reiterate what I just said. It just, through the development process of the property, it just makes a lot of sense for us. Because otherwise, I'm running a road in the backside of the property. The access to the businesses becomes, not ideal. And just, we've put a lot of thought into this. We've had probably 3 or 4 plans go back and forth between engineering and us. And this just seems to be the best way to drain the property, the best way to cut that road in there, because the bed's already there. And I'm not, obviously it creates a little less work for us, but not a lot. It just seems to make sense. And again, we're not asking for any variance off of the required landscaping. It's just basically letting me put the road closer to the end, kind of like a service road on most of the interstates around. You go to Texas, you have a service road right there next to the highway. And it just, overall, it just seems to work a lot better. We think it's going to be a lot more attractive. The planting buffer, so if we put that 30-foot planting buffer where it is now, those trees are going to get lost. You're not even going to see them behind the row of trees that's on the interstate buffer. So again, it just makes a lot of sense to us from an aesthetic standpoint, from a functional standpoint, and we hope that it meets y'all's requirements.
Thank you. I will open the discussion to the board. Are there any questions for either, I guess, Mr. Marone is representing.
Yes, I have a question.
Would you please step to the microphone?
Yes, how you doing? So I'm looking at your site plan here, and I'm trying to decipher where this 30-foot buffer is going to be moved from where it's supposed to go on the south side of the road.
Right.
To the. Are you putting it
on the
right
south,
north
yeah,
of the
so
road or north
so
of the property?
So the white line that you see coming from Crennel, okay,
Okay.
that's the road bed. It doesn't have anything, basically just, okay, you can see the road, okay?
Correct.
Here's your road coming in.
Yes,
That's
sir.
right along the property line. So there'll also be a ditch separating between the road and the property line. So
Okay.
you'll have the property line, drainage, road, and then the 30-foot buffer.
Then the 30-foot buffer?
Yeah, so your 30-foot buffer is the clear white line going all the way, basically all the way around the property.
Okay,
You
and
see
with
that?
turn-ins through the buffer?
That's correct.
To the
That's correct.
development?
To the
that you're planning.
proposed, so what we did is we developed this site plan based on the retention we have to require for drainage. And essentially, do I know that this is exactly where the buildings are going yet? No. So
Okay.
we're trying to get this process going. Ultimately, I have plans for two 12,000 square foot buildings there.
Okay.
But we wanted to plan for drainage for an additional 12,000 square foot building, as well as this whole yard being aggregate, which is what it is now, okay?
So it's going to remain aggregate?
That's correct, that's
Okay.
correct. So we'll only have concrete around the buildings and the required parking areas for said building.
Okay.
Everything else will be aggregate yards.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board? Mr. Glockner, any other questions? Mr.
no.
Blosh?
No, ma'am.
All right. All right. Do I hear a motion? Mr. Glockner has made a motion to approve as requested. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Mr. Daly will second. If you will please vote.
Motion carries, all in favor.
Thank you. All right. We're going to go back to number 1 on our list, BOA case 2024-3734. Request by applicant in an A4 single-family residential zoning district for a variance to reduce the required rear yard setback from 10 to 9 feet. The property is located 38356 North 2nd Avenue, Pearl River, Louisiana. The applicant is Lionel Crawford. Would the staff please read the staff findings?
The request is to allow for the reduction of the required rear yard setback from 10 feet to 9 feet to allow for the placement of a 16-foot deep and 80-foot wide manufactured home on the property. While the property is only 50 foot in depth, no evidence of practical difficulty has been provided or any hardship to support the requested variance.
All right, Ms. Crawford, would you come forward, please? State your name and your address and address.
38356 North 2nd Avenue.
Would you say that again? I'm sorry.
Linnell Crawford,
Yes,
38356 North 2nd Avenue, Pearl River, Louisiana.
Thank you.
Excuse how I look. I totally let the time get past me, and I've been running to the schools all day. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. So
Well, thank you for doing that for teachers.
thank y'all for waiting on me. The home that's on that property now, it's a 22-foot home. And we just trying to get that 1 foot. We had the hearing to do a modular home, a mobile home, put on the property. But the way that they have the address set, it would only fit a 14 wide. So we was trying to see if we can get that 1 foot to get the 16, because I think she said we would be able to get a 15, which they don't make 15s.
Right.
But if we can get that 1 foot, we'd be able to get a 16.
All right, so your request is, and that is what your request is?
Yes, ma'am. And the property that I'm asking that variance to go, my sister owns that property directly behind me, and she sent in a notarized letter saying she didn't object to it.
All right. And we've got that letter. All right. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
All right. Any discussion for the board? Any questions?
I'll just bring this to the board's attention that we have had at least 2 cases, maybe 3 that
Yeah.
since I've sat on this board, then we've approved every last one of them.
I agree.
I mean, we're talking about,
1 foot.
that's almost a foot right there, 11 and a half inches, so, or 11 inches. So I have no issue with this. I think it's something that we've always,
We've
allowed.
had that in Slidell, Pearl River, here, so.
right.
So there is precedent.
Yeah.
Mr.
and
Daly?
I would just like to add that's due to the constrained site. The fact that the site is constrained in how it's laid out. So that's our thinking. It isn't that it's, a huge site and
No.
giving you a foot. It's that there's very limited space on how it was subdivided. I also want to point out that Second Avenue is not constructed as well. I mean, there's 2 roads on either side that are not even constructed, so there's a lot of aspects to this that
Yeah.
are similar to some of those cases.
Absolutely.
So I was good with puzzles.
Yeah. All right, is there any further discussion? All right, I would ask the board to please make a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'll motion that, let me get to the case here, that we accept the variance request as submitted for BOA case 3734?
34, yes, sir.
Okay, 3734.
And I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the variance for 3734. If you'll please vote with your voting apparatus.
Motion carries. All in favor?
Thank y'all.
Awesome.
Y'all have a
Good luck.
blessed
We
day.
thank you. And thank you for what you do for teachers. All right. At this point, I would ask if there is any old business that we need to discuss. All right.
I just have new business.
I'm going to ask for that next.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So no old business.
Do we know if we're going to have alternates seated any time for the next time?
I'm going to acquiesce to Ms. Lambert.
If I'm not mistaken, it will be addressed at the June council meeting.
Okay. All right, and that'll be the end of June. What is it, the third Thursday?
It's the first. It will be after the BOA meets.
Okay, so it's tomorrow.
Fourth, and they meet June 6th.
So it's tomorrow.
June.
Oh, June 6th, that's right,
June,
yeah.
So
That's right,
so we'll be fine without a,
okay.
And we
Yeah.
have one new member that wasn't here. So-
Correct. Was she, were they, well, I'm sure that
he
they
hasn't
were.
seated either though at this point, I don't think. His,
So we all.
But he still has
He
the
is?
authority to
Okay,
sit as an
okay,
alternate until he's
okay.
replaced.
Okay,
okay, well, that makes sense, let me just make sure he's here.
yeah, okay. All right. With that being said, I'll move to new business.
Yeah, I just have a question about our new things, because we used to be able to see the votes here, and I can just unmute,
I can just unmute myself at any time, and it's taking some control from the chair. So I just want to make sure that was, our protocols, because
Right.
this will be on the whole time if I don't.
Yeah, and I would like to ask what we call this. Because vote with your screen is no longer appropriate, I guess. Vote with your baby screen? I don't know. I'll come up with something. Yeah.
You can, yeah, we'll let you
Voting
name it.
device.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was okay that I keep unmuting myself.
It's okay if you keep
Okay,
on
good.
muting yourself.
Oh, okay, okay.
If I have well, that's a lot of power. My husband would say that happens frequently.
If you touch the screen, it doesn't come on?
It does. It comes on
Not
if I.
yours, not yours. No, you got
Yeah.
it.
I got it.
You mean their
Yeah.
screens here?
Yeah.
Oh,
They, I don't know why
Yeah.
they're not coming on. They should be working. I don't know
okay.
if there's something that we can do.
Because I'm showing that Mr. Daly,
Yep.
myself, and the clerk
Are all unmuted?
are all on
Yeah, I'm
live mic.
unmuted. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I can ask Katrina, but there should be a way for us to put all of their screens on so that they can see anything.
So
that's
previously, the chair would have to unmute you. Now we can unmute ourselves. So.
All right, so that's nice.
Maybe,
Yeah, and then she'll.
maybe do like voting
Okay.
results down
Yeah,
there
because
and see if they show up on
before
their
we could
screens.
submit a button
Oh, yeah,
request
see,
to be
now it turns
recognized.
on their
Oh,
screens. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, now I see
So
it,
if you ever had
okay.
something plugged into the lectern laptop, you could put that one on and then they'd be able to see whatever was plugged in, or up on the big screens, they can see at their seats.
Alrighty.
yeah, and previously we would press, and then there'd be a queue of who could talk, so it was a little
Right.
bit easier for you. So now we'll just have to remember to go and be
Okay.
recognized.
When you request to speak on these boxes, it puts you in order on their screen so that they can call you.
And then I can
Oh,
call them in
okay.
order.
Okay.
You all won't be able to see it, but Ms. Thomas will see, Mr. Blake is not position number 1, Mr. Gaylor position number 2, Mr.
Okay.
Wagner position number 3, and call you in that order.
Okay. All right, further new business, thank you for electing me. I will do my best and not stumble like I did today. Just give me a little bit of a chance to do it. The second thing, Mr. Blosh, is that you will be the chair next time because I'll be in Europe.
Okay, we are in trouble.
So the date of next month's, Helen, do you have that?
It's gonna be, June 4th.
June 4th, alrighty. And I will be back, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we'll be back. We're going to England, Spain, Portugal, the Canary Islands, and then back up to London, so. All right. With nothing else, any other business? I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Or should I do this? Bam!